program, and control. As a small biz pro, so we grow. Using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh yeah, I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh yeah, I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Business Zone with
Crystal
and Gilbert Buchanan, your small business paramedic. Today is a very special day, folks. Not only is it Mental Health Month, not only is it the weekend of Memorial Weekend, but my co-host and I, we've got a very special show for you. Today, our show is all about blackness. All
Nah.
about black wealth, black power, black privilege in an economic sense. So, Crystal, what do you think we're going to talk about today?
Well, Gilbert, like you said, the 20 has been a very 2020 starting 20 actually 5 years ago when the man that was in the White House is in the White House. But hey, this is a very awakening time, right? We've been all waking up from a deep, 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 deep dark sleep and sound sleep, and so 100 years has passed since the massacre at Black Wall Street in Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're going to talk about that today. They're really not celebrating, but they're acknowledging that 100 years ago there was a massacre that destroyed a city that had become economically sustainable. The things that we in our community talk about every single day is we need to recycle and keep our dollars in our community and become sustainable. So there was a place in Oklahoma that did that. And so we're going to talk about that. But it's just so much going on right now, Gilbert. And I think I've been reading some amazing books about our blackness and what needs to change and how it needs to change. I read a book recently by a young lady, an author. Her name was Heather McGee. It's called The Sum of Us. Awesome book, and it talks about the coming together of the ethnicities to make change and create equality and justice for all of us, and to deal with the racial issues that we're all facing. Because if we sit down and have a conversation, just like we did when who was it that came on our show? That's from the Latin Business Restaurant Association.
Oh, that's Lily
Yeah.
Rocha. Yeah.
Right. We were having conversations with Lily and her brothers and her, they have some similar situations and experiences that we have, and in the last couple of weeks with the Asian population and people going after them because they feel they brought in the Chinese flu, the Chinese coronavirus. Yeah. And then lastly, a couple weeks ago, last week, we had what was going on in the Gaza Strip with Palestinians and Israel, and now Jews here in America are being attacked. So it's just like racism has just taken a toll and is out of control, and we need to get it back in the box, and the genie back in the box, because it's really creating a country that is actually quite embarrassing. To be quite honest, it's embarrassing to say you live in a country that there's one dominant grouping of people that feel they have all of the rights and everybody else is subservient. That just bothers me.
It is so amazing, Crystal, that we have a privileged culture who, if people don't look like them, then they're discriminated against. So you've got the blacks, you've got Latinos, you got Asians, you got Muslims. Yes. You've got Native Americans. You see what I'm saying? Those are all groups that don't look like the privileged culture, so therefore they discriminate against us. So my thing is, why don't all of our groups get together, form a coalition, and strengthen ourselves against that? Because they feel like they don't need us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can form a coalition among ourselves, then we wouldn't really need them as well. We could just function within ourselves. And if they want to interact with us, they want to do business with us, sure, we'll do business, you know. But at the same time, you got to recognize us, you got to respect us, you got to see us as being a human being.
Human.
Yeah, as a human being and not just one drop of of a human being. So
Yeah.
those are the types of things that I'm seeing, and the more we strive to form coalition among other ethnicities and implementing those coalitions in terms of economics, you know, in terms of uh, um, healthcare, in terms of schools, and education, that's going
Mm-hmm.
to really help not only just us, but also the society. Because a lot of our cultures are not being taught in schools because it's been purposely suppressed by the privileged group.
Right.
Or if they do talk about it, they give their own version of it, which isn't mostly true. You know, it's usually their rendition of what they think the story should be. So
Exactly.
so I think we should really think strongly, all of the groups that are affected, all of the groups and all minority groups in this country have been affected at one point or another, you know, and we can't just stand by and stay silent because it's not happening into our group this time around. But we should always, if we see the other group is being impacted, then we want to step out and say something about it. And we see it happening right now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, perpetually, it's African Americans. Perpetually, that doesn't go away. You
No.
know, if there's a crime somewhere, we're the suspect. If we're
Right.
just driving down the street, or if we're in a store, we're the suspect. Now, the Asian community is being impacted. The Latinos have been impacted a long time ago. The Native Americans have been
Mm-hmm.
impacted a long time ago. The Jewish population been impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Muslims are being impacted. So we need to form a coalition. We need to get together, you know, and that's what I'm looking at.
I think you're absolutely right. In fact, there's a poem that was written by a German poet, and he said, first they came for my neighbor, then they came for this person, then they came for that person, then they came for the black person, and then when they came for me, there was no one there to protect me. So
Right.
that's really what we're talking about, is that, you know, you're on the chopping block. So that leads me into this other book I'm listening to, that I'm listening to right now, which is absolutely a phenomenal book. So if anyone that's out there listening, I would suggest get the book, read the book. If you're not a reader person, then get an audio version of it, but it's called Cast. And Gilbert, so exactly what you're talking about is there was a there is a strategy that's going on. This is not something, it's not just something that's happening. It's a strategy with a working plan, and a flexible working plan to maintain the subordinates of a grouping of people and the dominance of another grouping of people, right? So, like just like the caste system in India, where you have, I think they're called the Druids. They are like the lowest caste in Indian culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're designated to do and to be the servants of the others, and there's 7 different levels to this until you get to the highest dominant level, which are called the
Uh-huh.
bryons. So America is that, but their levels are black people, because we were we were the slaves, the property that generated wealth for the dominant race.
Mm-hmm.
We are always at the bottom of the caste system. And then the next, they kept bringing in other immigrants in order to continue to bring in the strength of for the dominant. So if you were a white persuasion or a lighter persuasion, then your level went up above us, right? So we're always
Yeah.
on the very, very bottom, and everybody else. But ultimately, the dominant caste, which is the white caste, the Caucasian caste, they're the ones that's in dominant. So you really have to read so you understand truly what is going on. And the same thing, Hitler did the exact same thing with the Jews. They just felt that the Jewish people, if they let them remain like they were, then they, because of the proclivity to become wealthy, would outrank them and therefore would take over. So it's all about
Yeah.
power, and it's all
Right.
about dominance. So
Yeah.
we really need to talk about that in earnest, and so that we can make a change. And you're absolutely right. If all of the minorities came together to fight as a human, one human, because this is what I say, Gilbert. We are all the same on the inside. We
Mm-hmm.
all bone and blood and tissue and all that, right? We
Right.
all have the same organs. We all function. God gave us all the same capacity. The only thing different is our outer coat. Our
Yeah.
outer coat has a different color,
Mm-hmm.
and God did that. And so we're no different. Our experiences may be slightly different, but there's a core of us that's exact same. We bleed the same, we love the same, we have children, we grieve for our children if something happens to them, we grieve for our lost ones if something happens, we celebrate new babies coming into our communities, into our families, and we celebrate and we honor our elders, and we mourn our death. So those experiences are the same. I don't care where you live on this planet.
Mm-hmm. That
If
is
you are
true.
on this planet Earth, that is how we function. And so
Yes.
to say that there's a dominant power that is preventing from the other people from creating a sustainable lifestyle, then that's the problem. That's a problem. That's a
Right.
problem that we have. So
Yeah.
that's my soapbox. So with that, today we're talking about a time, I've heard kids say the little bit of history that they did get in school. They always wondered, why did we not, how could we just still be the same? We didn't fight back. What happened? And
Yeah.
we did fight back. And we did come out of slavery with the goal to make a better life for ourselves. And then, mind you, Gilbert, we started with nothing. We have
Yeah.
business owners today that are always screaming, I need to have capital to start my businesses. These
Mm-hmm.
people walked away from a plantation of which they were owned
Mm-hmm.
in tattered clothing, tattered shoes. Some of
Yeah.
them had fought in a war against against the Civil War, and wasn't respected on either side, but was fighting for the freedom of this country. And they
Mm-hmm.
came out with just what was on their clothes on their back.
Mm-hmm.
And these people went to other places in this country, and they were able to create a better life for them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Grouping of freed slaves that made a journey to Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a city called a suburb called
Greenwood.
Greenwood, and they created a um, a Black Wall Street, which was built for Black people by Black people. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And the country is talking about that today, because in 1921, 100 years from today, actually it was May 31st, 100 years from the day, that town was decimated, mainly for them just trying to do what we talk about every day, have and live a life where we're not suffering, and we can take care of our own.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And it's so amazing that we were involved, or I would say enveloped, in this uh, in that environment where we knew we could no longer survive under those conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So we walked away, and when we walked away with nothing. We had nothing at all,
Mm-hmm.
but we had to build, we had to rebuild from scratch. And that to me is sustainability, because those folks were able to uh, create things that helps them to sustain themselves, so they wouldn't be dependent on the other culture, the privileged culture.
Mm-hmm.
And after that economy was built and starting to flourish and becoming self-sustainable, then the privileged culture did not like that, and they decided to destroy it.
Right.
Now we weren't relying on them for anything. We didn't need anything from them. We were self-sustainable. You see
Right.
what I mean? But they couldn't stand the fact that there are groups out there that are self-sustainable. So they wanted to come in, destroy it, and force us to become dependent upon them once again.
Yeah, exactly. And isn't it something, Gilbert, um, that, and you and I have heard this so much because, the space that we're in, the business space, and we always have our clients are building businesses and trying to grow their businesses, and capital is always an issue for them, right? And what do you normally hear? Why can't you guys pull yourselves up by your bootstraps?
Yeah.
And become independent and self-sustainable. So here is a group that a grouping of people, black people with nothing, did exactly that. And what
Right.
happened? You came along and you
And
destroyed it.
destroy it.
So you really truly don't want that.
Right.
Because you're
Exactly.
talking out of both sides of your mouth now.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Because and even the groups today that are saying, why can't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? We've been doing that over and over and over. We've been pulling ourselves up through the bootstrap because the system doesn't really offer us opportunities. It doesn't offer us assistance. What it does, it gives us a little pittance that we will remain dependent upon them.
Mm.
Welfare is nothing that really elevates us or transform us or take us
Oh
to
no,
another
it's to keep
level.
you dependent.
It keeps us dependent upon the system, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And all those, even if you get a loan from a bank to start your own business, the loan is at outrageous rates.
Yes.
Or the amount that you get in a business loan is so small that you can't really function the way that you ought to in order to be self-sustainable. So again, they try to keep us dependent upon them for more stuff. It's like, hey, you want to become a fisherman? Here's one fish. Go ahead and eat this fish. You see what I'm saying?
But I'm not gonna give you the pole to go do your own fishing.
Yeah,
In
I'm not
other
going to show
words,
you
I'm
how to
gonna give
do
you
this. I'll
one
just
fish.
give you a fish. Here's one fish, and you can try to feed your family with that one fish. Okay? Yeah,
And sustain for a lifetime on that one fish.
exactly. And they know that once you eat that fish, tomorrow you're gonna be hungry again. You're
Right,
gonna want you're
exactly.
gonna want another fish for you and the kids, right? So that's exactly what they do. So we want to break away. I mean, we broke away from this before 1921
Yeah, in
back in
1865.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing, Gilbert. When you were growing up, now I actually grew up in New York,
Yeah.
so we come from a much more militant stock up there.
Yeah.
But I have relatives that grew up in the South, and I was speaking with someone yesterday, and we were talking about that and how that the further away that you got away from the South in that mentality, and not to say that that mentality still did not exist in the North, because it did.
Yeah.
They just were better at hiding it. But still, you strive for different things, and you're from Jamaica, so you come from the history of slavery and the Maroons in Jamaica. Y'all were a fighting group of people, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
and so the question is, I know when I was growing up, I had to go look for my own Black history. I had to read to find out exactly, because I was curious. I grew up. Martin Luther King had been murdered, and John F. Kennedy, and Robert Kennedy. All of these things were going up, shaping when I grew up. And so,
Yeah.
but I didn't get that history in school.
Yeah.
I had to go find my history, and I just happened to be one of those inquisitive individuals that I went out looking. How about you? What kind of history did you get?
It's amazing that you asked that, Crystal, because we learned about the slave trade. We learned about slavery. We learned about how things were back then for our foreparents.
Mm-hmm.
But they gave us a mixture of a lot of things. So they taught us about the transportation aspect of slavery,
Mm-hmm.
how people got moved from one point to another, from
Mm-hmm.
Africa to the Caribbean and to other countries.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about that. Now, they talked a little bit about the treatment of the slaves on those ships,
Okay.
how they forced them to eat,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever they gave them, it wasn't, sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't subsistent. So,
Right.
I mean, we're not gonna eat stuff. And some of the food that they gave us was old stale food, rotten
Right.
food
Rotten
to
food.
eat.
You had to make
Yeah.
do with what you had.
Yeah. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing about it is like we're going, man, we had our own farms, we grow our own food and it was fresh. Now we gotta eat the stale stuff these people don't even want to eat. It's been like
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks old and we still gotta eat it. Some of it's got maggots in it and we
Mm-hmm.
gotta eat it anyway. So and as a result of that, some people didn't want to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So they force them and say, well, you better eat because you're my investment. You're my asset.
Right.
So we're taking you to go put you to work on a plantation so we can produce you can produce money for us. So
Mm-hmm.
you're a machine that's going to make money for us.
Right.
That's how they saw us. So we learned that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now what they didn't teach us about the Willie Lynch letter and all of that. See what I'm saying?
But
they
they try to say that Willie Lynch letter doesn't really exist, that it was a
oh
figment. It's like fake news.
they will say that, just like they're saying that the election was a fraud and all of that, right? They'll say that. And just like they're saying that the January 6th insurrection didn't occur. It was a field trip that we perceived the wrong way,
Right. They were kumbayaing.
Yes, exactly. So all of those things happen. But they try to hide. They try to hide the system,
Yeah.
the blueprint that they use to make that oppressive process successful. And
Yes.
and and that blueprint is the Willie Lynch letter, which speaks to
To
you
control.
how you can control these people, how you can suppress them, and how you can continue to make them work for you without paying them, and they'll be happy about it.
Right.
You see what I mean? So we learned some of that, but we didn't learn that system right there. I mean, we saw it manifested in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
but we really didn't understand the commercial the commerce side of it.
The commerce
And
side of it. Right.
yeah, You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
And,
So
and, and in American history or a class, when you're taking American history, they kind of glossed over that, and then they jumped right over into the Industrial Revolution, right?
oh yeah, oh
And
yeah,
skipped all that other stuff and
oh
skipped
yeah,
right into the industrial, like, but in America, that was the core of the building of this country,
yeah,
was slavery, because that's how they became wealthy. That's
right.
how the banks became wealthy. That's how everyone became wealthy.
Oh yes.
Um, and they were involved. Now, here I'm curious before we jump into our topic today. So, because at that time, were you in school with, did Great Britain still, were you guys still a commonwealth, or when
No,
you got
no,
your independence?
we had gotten our independence.
Okay.
I think our independence was 1961 or 1963, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So when I was born, we didn't have independence. So we were still under the British rule
Right.
because the British. So let me explain, because see, a lot of people don't understand how this whole slavery thing worked,
Right.
and the whole slavery system has several components to it. So what happened is, just like the cable companies operate right now, just like the car companies operate in this country right now,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is how it was back in slavery, where a group of countries who call themselves first world countries or the dominant countries, they came together and they strike a deal and they said, okay, all of us are going to own the world. We're going to own all of these countries. We're going to own all these slaves, and we're going to dispatch them to our own little
Right.
other countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had Britain, you had Spain, you had France, you had Holland, and you got Portugal. Those five countries control the world.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just like we have these cable companies control the commerce and the market. You
Right.
got
Yes, exactly.
AT&T, Verizon.
Good
Um,
analogy.
you see
I
what
like
I'm
that
saying?
analogy. Uh-huh.
Yes, they came together just like those cable companies. Because what those cable companies do, they say, okay, you're gonna control North Los Angeles, you'll control South. This one will control the east side, that one will control the west side. That's how they divvy up the cable. So
Mm-hmm.
if you notice in your community, if you want to use, say, if you want to use Verizon, for example, as your internet service provider, you can't, because Verizon doesn't provide services in your area.
Right.
Only AT&T and Spectrum.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what they did in slavery. They divided the world. So the five major countries at the time: Spain, England, France, Portugal, and Holland. Those
Mm-hmm.
five they control, and they divided. So if you notice, most of the languages that were spoken at that time, it take on that form. So the countries that England controlled, they were English speaking countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if
Right.
they didn't speak English, they forced them to speak English, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So England controlled Jamaica. We didn't care about speaking English, but they forced us to,
Right. Exactly.
because they brought us there, and we speak our own African language, and
Mm-hmm.
we've got dialect that we speak also. So they say, hey, don't ever speak like that. You will speak English and English only.
Right.
So that's
Exactly.
what
You
they
would
do.
actually could die
Exactly.
from not speaking English,
Oh
and but
yeah.
you couldn't speak cultured English.
Right.
You had to make sure they had to
Yes.
make sure that you sounded subordinate to them.
So they can understand what you're talking about, to make sure you weren't planning a revolution against them.
Yeah. Right.
So you had to speak their kind of language so they can understand you. So we didn't listen to them. We talk our own language too. So when we get together in a group, what we would do is we would sing. So when we sing in our language,
Yes.
that's how we communicated. Now, that's another reason why we know so much about slavery, because Songs were written about the oppression of slavery, what happened, how they transported us from Africa to Jamaica, and what happened along the way. They said
Right.
some of us, our foreparents will jump overboard and commit suicide in
Mm-hmm.
shark infested water because
Mm-hmm.
we didn't want to go to the fate that we're going to. You know, hi Tanya, how are
Hey,
you?
Tanya. Now, Tanya, remember, and it's so funny. Tanya popped in just right now, right? Because
Yeah.
remember when Tanya and her daughter, were you on? Were you? Tanya came on the show with her and her daughter. They had just come back from Egypt.
No, I missed that. I missed
Okay,
that.
so Tanya was telling us when we were talking, they're jumping off of ships and jumping off the slave ship. So when they were leaving out of America, out of heading to on their trip, uh, she said they received a letter from the group that they were traveling with, and they were saying the letter contained that you are now flying over the waters some of your ancestors may have jumped off the ship in order to they would prefer death over being a
Slavery.
slave.
Yeah.
And she was saying how powerful that was when that happened. So
Oh
it's
yes.
just when you travel back to
Yeah.
find out more about your history,
Yeah.
it's such a feeling
Yeah.
that you get. And
It's
so,
it's heart rending because
yes,
you start imagining living in those times and going through those things, and it's hard. It's
yeah,
really hard. Think about a person having to make a decision between jumping in a shark infested water versus going to be a slave on a plantation where you'll never see your family again. You
right.
know, you
And
see
nor
what I'm
your
saying?
country, and you
Or
don't
your
know what
country.
is going to happen to you. You just
Yes.
know that this cannot be good because they
Right.
stole me and they got me chained up and I'm
Yeah.
in a hull of a ship. So I don't
Yeah.
know what's on the other side, but
Yeah.
I know it's going to be far worse than this, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So picture someone kidnapping you. They put stuff over your head and put you in a vehicle and drive you far, far away that you don't even know where you're going. And they're gonna put you on some plantation to work where you're gonna work so horribly, like, maybe 18 hours a day. You see
right.
what I'm saying?
No food,
No
and
food,
also be beaten at will and
beaten.
whim.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
be made to sing and dance for somebody's
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Any of those things had took place, and so when we talk about our topic that we're going to talk about today, you actually have to ask yourself, how did a people last through three generations? Because that's really what for me, my family was actually three generations. How did we survive the torturous stuff and still come out that on the other side of that when we were finally emancipated and be able to create something? To me, it would be we talk about this being mental health month. Can you imagine? I mean, when we talk about post traumatic syndrome, what that would be like? Everything about us is culturized based upon the brutality that our ancestors lived through, and how they survived is beyond me.
And that's why when the people from the privileged group or the privileged culture say, you need to forget about that. You can't keep talking about that. They don't understand that trauma. They don't understand how it impacts you. Now, think about this. Think about this. Picture a person who's been abused by their parents, whether the parents slap them around or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slap them around and then they grow up to be an adult. So that's like, let's call it 30 years, right?
Yeah, right.
So you're going to remember those things. And if in 30 years you're still going to carry those scars around, the way your parents treated you horribly,
Mm-hmm.
now picture us 450 years. You see what I'm saying? Going through those kind of trauma and still reliving those traumas every day.
And
Still
still,
getting still getting that police profiling, still getting, unfair treatment, still getting people saying, hey, here's an opportunity, but it's not the real opportunity because, you want to purchase a home, you can't get one because they won't give you a mortgage.
Right.
All your economics has been arrested from you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And to go in and try to get that mortgage, and not only do they just not say no, they humiliate you to the place so that you will never come ask again. That's
Yeah.
it. They want to make sure you stay in your place.
Yeah.
Tanya said we must keep talking about it because we should never forget, and she's going to get me a copy of that letter that
That's
she
right.
read, because she said that it was really, we had to go back and there's a the videos in our archive, but you could feel it. She goes, it felt like when they were reading it, goosebumps on their arms, and their heart felt
Yeah.
the deepness of that.
Oh yeah.
But we're gonna jump over to, so those individuals that did leave and were able to make themselves of something of themselves. So here
Yeah.
they come and they leave and they get their freedom, and they go and they travel across the country to the wild wild west, where again the dominant culture has eliminated the Native American from their lands, basically
Yeah.
doing the exact same thing, right? But
Yeah.
what they did was they left some opportunities. And so in that, there were a number of individuals, one individual for sure, and we're going to talk about him, that he built, and he was the founder of what we all have come to know of as Tulsa, Oklahoma's Black Wall Street, which was
Yeah.
in the district of Greenwood. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I learned about Black Wall Street when I was in school. I think
No, they won't. They won't teach you that. They will
yeah,
not
I
teach
don't
you
think
that.
I got that. I think I doing my research and my inquiry and my thirst for learning as much about us as I could possibly find. Then I ran across Greenwood. It always made you think like, wow, we are still, after all that trauma, able to build and to become and to have dreams. I mean, just
Yeah.
literally to have dreams. So, the founder, this the guy. This was during the time when everyone was migrating over to out west. It was nothing for them in the South after the Civil War. African Americans were emancipated, and they began integrating into the tribes, a relationship that would provide freemen with their own land. Now there were also some situations where the Native American also held us captive, but uh, for the most part, they were kind of allies. So in Tulsa, they were able to create the African American district thrived as a community of business leaders and visionaries. And I know we talk about this all the time. This is the whole mission of Recycling Black Dollars, is to be able to create businesses and support our own businesses and create economic wealth and empowerment within our own communities, so that we are not dependent on others. So, but before Greenwood, this is just a little history for those of you that didn't get that history lesson. Before Greenwood District was established, African Americans came to Oklahoma in the mid 19th century as slaves of the free civilized tribes. And the term used for the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole tribes, who were forced from their lands in the southeast part of the country, resettling in Oklahoma, and then known as the Indian Territory. So this is where they and again there were slaves of the Indians, had slaves as well. In fact, that's how those of us that have Indian blood got our Indian blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because we're
And
there.
and Crystal, I want to touch on something on your first slide there, which is very, very important. And I would like a lot of our folks to recognize this. We've heard of Farmers Bank before, but we had no idea that it was first owned and created by a black entrepreneur. You see what I'm saying? We heard of Mutual Life Insurance Company. We never know it was created by an African American slave.
No.
Ex-slave. You see what I'm saying? So we never knew that. And also, a lot of these companies that are out there right now, like Union Bank, for example. Union Bank was formed to protect the farmers and low income folks. That's what Union Bank was for. But then it got taken over by these capitalists who totally lost the vision of what Union Bank was all about, and now they commercialize it. So when we try to get loans, they treat us just like the other banks. That's not what the purpose was. The purpose of Union Bank was because we couldn't get loans. Minorities could not get loans from anywhere else. So that's why that bank was formed. If you ask a manager at Union Bank right now about that, they have no clue about that story. They don't know the purpose or why it was. So it's the same thing with Farmers Bank right here. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, because I didn't even know that. I didn't know that as well. Like I said, it's just so much information that we don't know about. And so in that, in the early in the 1900s, these businesses, these black people pulled themselves truly up by their bootstraps, and they went to find a better life. And here they again, here's another journey. They had no idea where this journey was going to go, but in this journey they were like, well, it's got to be better than where I am. And so basically the relationship of the wealth, or the relative wealth of some of the black folks in Oklahoma, came in part through their connection with their tribes and ownership. And then there were some Dawes Act of 1887 authorized the government to divide the Indian territories into individual Native Americans, which included some birds. And as the word spread in the Indian territory, that it was a safe place for African Americans to settle, and this was between 1885 and 1920. More than 50 black townships were founded in Oklahoma. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have friends that are from Oklahoma. They didn't even know Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Greenwood, or the Black Wall Street actually existed.
And they're unbelievable.
From Oklahoma.
Unbelievable. Right? And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, how they withhold that type of information from the general public. You see what I mean? Because they don't want us to know the extent of the cruelty that they imposed on African Americans, I should say Africans
at the time. The efforts, the heroic efforts that went in place to keep you from finding out. Yeah. So there's a book that I read last year called Black Fortune. So if you guys are interested there, it's actually talking about the 7 wealthiest of black people in American history. And this guy was one of those. His name was Ottawa W. Gurley. He was a black educator, entrepreneur, and landowner who was born to former enslaved Africans at the beginning of the 20th century. He went to Oklahoma, and he was he did some. There was the Homestead Act, right? And so he purchased 40 acres of land in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was raised in Arkansas, moved to Oklahoma during the Oklahoma land rush of 1889. After running a general store in Perry, Oklahoma, Gurley, a serial entrepreneur, moved to oil-rich Tulsa and reportedly purchased 40 acres of land on the north side of the city with the vision of selling residential and commercial plots to African Americans. Gurley wasted no time opening a rooming house, purchasing buildings, and providing loans to help other people start their own business. So he was one of the founders. And what he did was
of Black Wall Street.
Of Black Wall Street. So what he did was he reached back. He was encouraging people to come, that they could buy this land, and that they were going to create, a utopia, so to speak.
Right.
So
To
um,
promote self-sufficiency, because they know that if we went to the privileged dominant culture, they wouldn't try to recognize us. They would try to, steal our land, perhaps. So
and the same thing that goes on today, they would have prevented that from happening, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because the second level of slavery was the sharecroppers, right?
yeah,
We give
yeah.
you a little bit of a land, and at the same time, when we did that, then we were making sure that you still stayed in servitude, just another
Mm-hmm.
look of servitude. Didn't
Yeah,
call it slavery, but you
yeah,
still were in servitude. So these people were like, let me get the heck away. So there
yeah.
was another um oh, and
Architect,
yeah,
another architect.
architect. Let me jump over because I moved. What happened? I missed this guy. Uh
Uh,
Oh, let me go back. So
go back.
anyway, there was another guy. I don't know what happened to him, but his name was J.B. Stanford, and he was the former son he was the son of a former enslaved man. He was a lawyer from Kentucky. He owned pool halls, shoe shine parlors, and boarding houses. And before moving to Tulsa in 1889, with the goal of creating wealth in Indian Territory, Stanford invested in real estate properties and bought the Stanford Hotel on Greenwood Avenue, a luxury establishment that was considered the largest black owned hotel in the country, with 54 guest suites, a pool, um, a saloon, and also a dining room. So even today, that is always the quest of Americans, is right, is to Black America, is to buy real estate. And as you can see, this real estate really helped in helping you develop and create your wealth. So that's what we're always talking about. Don't just be in an apartment building. Hey, Lloyd, owning the renting from a building. You want to buy the building, because
That's
that's
right.
what gives you leverage. And so
Right.
that's what gave these people leverage.
Right.
Another one of the architects of Greenwood was A.J. Smitherman, whose family moved to the territory in 1890. He founded the Tulsa Star, a black newspaper based in Greenwood. As a publisher, he was outspoken about discrimination and regularly informed African Americans about their legal rights, and called for black men, many in Tulsa, who served in World War One, to take up arms in response to white mob violence. Now, I have a kinship with this man because he actually came from Buffalo. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, he left and went from Buffalo there. So he literally went to he actually when I was reading the articles that I pulled up here on the History Channel, he actually intervened in lynchings and other kind of events throughout Oklahoma. He was an activist in every sense of the word. Residents looked out for each other and supported the black businesses. And so this is what his role was. And this is something that Dr. Claude Anderson always talks about. He talks about the fact that if you own the media, then your story will be told.
Mm-mm-mm.
If you don't own media, then they're going to tell your story for you. And so that's why it's amazing now that we have podcasts and vehicles that no one can control our content that we're creating,
Mm-hmm.
because we're in control of that. So it's really important that we have an outlet, that we speak the truth, and we tell our people, and we help our people grow, which is one of the purposes of the business zone, is to help you grow by the information that we're gathering and sharing with you, and then the guests that we have that come on and experience and share their experiences as well.
And see, this is a great segue into this, Crystal, because having our program here, the Business Zone, it provides a platform for us to share information to people who we are here to help. And the information we're sharing is unfiltered. unfiltered. Just like this Booker T. Washington gentleman, he also did the same thing. I mean, Mr. Ellis Walker Wood. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So he did the same thing. By having his newspaper, he was able to share information to the minority groups, share legal advice with them when I'm sure they were being stop and frisk illegally back then.
Even back in that day.
Even back then, stop and frisk and lynched and, all of those things. So he probably was saying, hey, you guys got rights. These guys can't just run upon you with their trucks and guns and do whatever they need. You guys need to bear arms as well. You've got a right to bear arms. So those are some of the types of things so that's why when we have these programs, Crystal, it's important for our audience to hear what we have to say, because this is free information we're disseminating. This is stuff that you guys probably would have to pay a lot of money for in college. You go to college, you're going to have to pay a lot for what we're disseminating to you. And what we're giving you is direct information straight from the war zone, the war zone.
And hopefully this information you'll take and go do your own research, so you'll find out more. And today I spoke to a couple of young people that's going to be interns, and they're all about civil rights and justice and finding out information about their history. I can't say when I was their age. I mean, I was, but not everybody I knew was out looking for that information. And this is one of the things. So the next one was obviously education drew Black families to Greenwood. Now we all know how our parents really, really emphasized education, and there was a reason why when you had an aunt, your parent and your grandparent were descendants of slaves, they understood that the more knowledge you had, the safer, you could really make a change in your life. And you would hear them, don't be ignorant. Don't be ignorant. Don't be stupid. You need to get your education. So education was big. And so Booker T. Washington, he actually opened a school in 1913 in Greenwood, because education was important. You can't keep your wealth if you're not educated.
That's right.
And so he hired Ellis Walker Woods as the principal, and he was a beloved educator who would serve in that role for 35 years. Woods, who was college educated, walked from Memphis to Oklahoma after seeing a flyer advertising for Black teachers in Oklahoma. Wow. So when we are determined, he walked from Memphis, Tennessee to Oklahoma. That ain't around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he was looking for a better life for himself and his future family. Right. So he was another one of the architects. And then another architect was Simon Berry, a pilot. He responded to the Tulsa's white-only taxi service by seeing an opportunity and opening his own taxi service with his Model T Ford, and then expanding that operation to include a bus line and later a charter plane service for the wealthy oilmen that discovered oil in Tennessee. Now, there you talk about some innovation. That was the early Uber. He was the early Uber. He was the Spirit Airline. Yeah. He was the Southwest Airline, and he was the Greyhound bus man.
That's right. And see, that's the thing. That's the thing I want to kind of make a lot of entrepreneurs become aware of. Most of the times, or I should say, most of the times that you decide to embark on an invention or to solve a pain in the marketplace is because the way it is, you were not getting any satisfaction. You're not getting, you may not receiving service, or they may not be catering to you. They may block you out. They may restrict your access to their opportunities. Mm-hmm. So that's why you went out and you started your own business to solve that pain, not just for you, but for others like you in your community. So that's why a lot of entrepreneurs get started. That's why a lot of these guys got started. They
Yeah,
saw a pain in the marketplace.
and there was tons of pains. They had
Yes.
a whole frontier of pains that they could feel and was open. So that's what we're saying to our entrepreneurs. You know, it's fantastic to open up a business, the t-shirts and all that sort of stuff. But if you look around and you recognize that there's some major pain points in the community that you live in, or just in general, then look at starting a business that is going to satisfy someone's pain. You're going to provide the solution. You won't have to go looking for clients, because you will become the solution for something that they have been looking for all along.
Right,
it's like we got it backwards, right? People
yeah.
start that business and they then have to go look for the customers in order to support that business. Don't do that.
Right.
Create the business that's filling a void that is not there, that they need, and then they will flock to you. So that's really where that comes from.
For
You
a
don't have
ready-made
to.
market. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. It's a ready-made market. You don't have to work that hard in starting a business. You can actually solve a pain point or a niche that's being unmet. Now, another wealthy family, it was John and Lula Williams. They became some of the wealthiest people in Tulsa. They owned the Dreamland Theater with a rooming house and a confection. That's why financial literacy is filling the void. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right, Tanya.
Yeah. Yeah.
This couple, they owned a rooming house, a confectionery, a commercial a rental property, and a garage. Lula Williams was as much um, a partner in all of the couple's businesses, and other women in Greenwood became entrepreneurs as well. So that was the other thing that they did, Gilbert. They actually supported each other. So if I was starting a business, then they if they had money to invest, they invested in to help that person grow that business, and then that person would help that next person, and that's how you do that. You're using the whole community to uplift the community. It's
You
not
know,
just one person.
You know what's amazing about this trend that we're looking at here, Crystal, with these inventors who came before us, these pioneers that came before us? They all engage in separate industries that when you put them together, they form a coalition that help develop the infrastructure. Because you have transportation. This guy did the plane, the taxi, the buses. He did all of that. This other guy right here, he provided room and board and housing. That's part of your infrastructure. The other guy taught education. So he educates you, lets you know what's going on. That's part of your infrastructure. And then the other guy before him, he did the land. He purchased 40 acres of land, and he sold portions of it so you can build your own house, and it's a part of your infrastructure. So this is just amazing, Crystal. This is
just amazing. And although there were wealthy Black people in Greenwood, there were also people that were struggling, but those are the people that needed jobs. So then these people, they were able to provide employment for their communities, and and the money they spent and helped build their community. So you're right, Gilbert. They were building a community of services that they couldn't get outside of their own community. So they were creating their own community. So you had a lot of people that were working in hotels and so forth, and they got paid. So this other young lady, she and still part of this infrastructure, Mabel Little. She came from Boyle, Oklahoma, arrived in Tulsa in 1913 with $1.25 in her pocket.
Wow.
Now this lady lived to be 104. She just died, I think, a couple of years ago.
I think she died on May 21st this year.
Yeah, so she just died. She survived the massacre. She opened a successful hair salon and worked in the beauty business for decades. So again, she created another service that wasn't being met. Black women were
Exactly.
being, and barbers. They had, I mean, they needed a plate. They were going to work, so they
Yeah.
needed to look decent, and
Right.
they created. So they didn't take their money outside of the district. They put their money back in the district that they were living in, so that they could create this community. And I
Right.
must say, you're absolutely right, Gilbert. They were creating their foundation. Thank you, Rhonda. They created their own.
Thank you, Lloyd the Truth McLeod. Appreciate it.
So the Green Room residents supported Black-owned businesses on Wall Street. They looked out for each other. They supported Black-owned businesses. In the district, there were luxury shops and restaurants and grocery stores and hotels and theaters and barbershops and saloons and pool halls and nightclubs, funeral homes, and offices for doctors, lawyers, and dentists. And Greenwood also had his own school, his own post office, his own hospital, and his own jitney service. So they didn't need anything outside
Beautiful.
of their own community. Now, I would, it's you don't want to be separate, but there's no equality in
Right.
being working together. So
Yeah.
I would be fine living in a community that provided everything
for
I
sure.
need and supporting everything I needed. Just pack myself up, lock, stock, and barrel, find me in some empty land, and then that's what we need to do. But again, even though we weren't bothering anybody,
Right.
in Tulsa, they weren't in Oakland, on Black Wall Street or Greenwood, they weren't bothering anybody. But on May 31st, 1931, 100 years from Monday, a white mob descended on Greenwood and destroyed it.
Right.
And my understanding, when I did my research, it was they didn't even know we existed, because that's an interesting thing. The dominant culture really doesn't know you exist, because they're not coming to look for you, right? It's only when somehow or another what you do tends to fall over into their ear space, and then about it. So what I had heard was the poor whites of Greenwood couldn't get loans from banks.
Right.
And so
they would come to the Black establishments.
They came to the Black banks and the Black establishments, and they gave them loans, thinking that they could do that. Well, no. So when this person went and they got money, they're like, well, how did you get this money? I went over there to the Black town, but that's not the word that they use, and you all know that, right?
Yeah.
I went over. So even in that, they were derogatory. I went over there to the other place that they were going to call, that they called us, and they gave me a loan. You didn't give me a loan. They gave me a loan. And they're like, where they get money to do that? And at that point, they put it on the radar. And then on May 31st, 1921, sorry, that was probably 1921, a white mob descended, destroying 1,000 homes, multiple businesses, displacing the district's 10,000 residents, and a reported 300 Black residents were killed.
And you know what's amazing about all of this right here, Crystal? What's really similar and familiar about this is all of this massacre that occurred. It started with a lie. A lie. You see what? Just like recently in our elections, that election fraud claim is a lie. It started by someone who is a loser who can't stand losing.
Yes.
And they created that lie. They did the same thing with the Tulsa, Oklahoma. There was a Black gentleman who was
that's how they created the drama part of it.
Yes. He was a I think he's a shoe shine cleaner or a service worker. Mm-hmm. And there's this white woman who was going in an elevator, and she decided to lie that this gentleman touched her, and he never did. He never did. Yeah. So then she went to all of these privileged folks back then, and lied to them and said, hey, this person touched me, and the person never touched her. And this is how this whole race war thing got started.
And then they came out with their and they didn't just Gilbert, they didn't just come in. They bombed. They dropped bombs on the city, on the township, so that they could get rid of it. They wanted to level it, and they wanted to make sure that it was never rebuilt.
They wanted to demolish
it. That's some hatred. That's on a whole nother level of understanding. We weren't bothering them. You didn't have to take care of us. You didn't have to do anything with us. You could have just left us alone, and we've been on our side. We would have been doing what we were doing. But what happened? You decided that no, how in the world can those people be able to come up? Because again, if they're coming up, they're not in their place. They need to stay in their place. They cannot.
And see, again, Crystal, that's another reason why the government should compensate anyone who were descendants of those folks who live in that neighborhood, because you can't just have regular civilian people bombing a whole community without the government knowing about it. You see what I'm saying? Unless they are a part of it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because these are people, they took planes up in the air and they dropped bombs on the city. So what about the police? Where was the police then? Where was the government? So they were a part of it. So that's why the government is responsible for compensating us for that.
Exactly. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. They should be compensated. And then so this weekend, I think that's some of the conversation that's going to be had is, what needs to happen. So what happened after the massacre, Greenwood was rebuilt, actually, obviously not to the level that it was before, because it killed multiple people, and destroyed 10,000 houses. With the help of B.C. Franklin, a lawyer from Rentyville, Oklahoma, he moved to Greenwood a few months before the massacre. He successfully challenged the discriminatory ordinances meant to stop Greenwood residents from rebuilding after the massacre. So there's a program, a documentary that's coming on this weekend, so you can really get the full story. I highly suggest everyone do as much reading as possible. This is how we overcome. Yeah. This is how we learn how the strategies so that we too can build Black Wall Streets around the country. Right. We have to get out of this place that we're in. We have to, as Tanya said earlier, we have to understand financial literacy. We have to understand buying real estate helps you create assets. We have to be able to control our own media so that we can tell our story so that they're not telling you the big fat lie.
Yeah.
We have to not, and this is a big one, I think, Gilbert, we cannot let them come between us as a people and let them lie on what and who we are. I think that has been a problem over the years. Them being able to come, break you down, separate you, the Willie Lynch, and to be able to infiltrate in order to destroy you. We have to be lock solid to make sure that doesn't happen. This is the only way we protect our communities. I'm going to run this little clip. Hopefully it will run. And let's see. And this will be what they're going to do a program this week called Tulsa Burning. It's going to be on the History Channel. And so I highly recommend everyone watch it. And so let's see if I can play it.
I want to take you back 100 years ago. It's the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
You'll feel like you walked into a 1921 version of Wakanda and all is vibranium.
Some people called it Black Wall Street.
Can you enlarge the screen?
At sunrise and be exchanged only by black hands. You can't do that
no.
Then.
And then came the massacre.
Okay.
People want to say, oh, it was the Klan and this mob violence. No, it was the police department. It was the of Tulsa.
This was the largest race massacre since the Civil War.
I'm Kalalia. Blind Spot, Tulsa Burning is the story of a community set on fire. and how a century later, the residents are still rebuilding.
I refuse to stand by and allow lies to be told.
From the History Channel and WNYC Studios, in collaboration with KOSU in Oklahoma. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
See, I'm telling you, man, it's unbelievable. I personally believe, Crystal, that there should be a Black Wall Street built in every community in order to promote sustainability. You see what I mean? Across this country, in every community.
I quite agree. I think that is the only way we have to become self-sufficient. We have to become we have to be able to fight to keep ourselves sustainable. We have to stop buying into the dramas that they present to us. Mm-hmm. And we have to be able to protect our children, but we cannot protect our children if we're not a cohesive, connected coalition of people.
Right. And that's why I keep saying all the time, man, not only just our group, but also the other minority groups. You know, if you put all the minority groups together, do you know what the percentage of majority dominance we would have? Because Latinos are 39. Latinos are 39%. African American is 13%.
Okay,
and you see what I'm saying?
Asians are 9.
Asian is about 9%. So already, let's put that together. So 39 plus 13, that's 52% right there. 52 plus 9, we're talking about what? 61%. Okay, that's 61% already. We haven't talked about the Native Americans. We haven't talked about the Indians. We haven't talked about Asians. We haven't talked about, the other groups. We haven't talked about them yet. So if we put that all together, man, I'm telling you, we are the dominant culture, and we can do business among ourselves. We don't need the privileged, culture to tell us what to do or run our lives and those types of things.
Well, we truly don't need to be continue to be in this subservient place that we feel we have no control.
Right.
That we're begging for our lives, like what we saw with George Floyd and the many others that have died. I'm going to put the link, guys, there so you can go and read up with the resources that we use today for this program. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Gilbert. I would love to. RBD has been around for 30-something years, 33 years, and we're still saying the same conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
And I get it, right? Sometimes it's not easy. And Fernando, you're absolutely right. We shall build and work together. We have to work together. And really, the only reason we don't work together is because someone told us that we can't work together.
Exactly. And again, that's a part of the Willie Lynch doctrine. Divide and conquer. That's part of the Willie Lynch doctrine. And that's why when they make it so that when we argue among ourselves, we start criticizing each other's appearance, our culture, personal things about us, because they want us not to like ourselves. So if they can make us feel inferior and feel awful, then we won't get together. We won't form that coalition.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do. So,
exactly. Yeah. And keeping us pitted against each other so that won't happen. Because even when you look, Fernando says, thank you for sharing the information. Thank you for watching and tuning in.
Thank you for watching, Fernando. Appreciate it, man. Thank you, guys.
Share the video, the show. This is the conversation that we have to have. We have to have these conversations every single day in order to do that. But Gilbert, if you're pitting groups against each other, telling you can't trust the Black people, or don't trust the Hispanic people, the Latino people, don't trust the Asian people, don't trust the Jewish people, what are you doing? You're trying to keep us apart and one feel more dominant than the other. It's about, they want you to stay in your place, and wherever they put you in that status, they don't want you to get out. And every time you look like you're going to get out. So Black Wall Street basically was about the fact these 10,000 Black people were getting out of their place. Yeah. Your place is to stay under my foot, says the dominant race. Yeah. And you, what you think you're doing, you coming out. So we have to be able to fight beyond that. We have to be able to prove. And as you said, 69% makes a big difference. And
for sure, man.
When that dominant race is very concerned by 2042 that they're not going to be dominant anymore.
Right.
And when you really look at it, it's all, I'm a numbers person, right?
Yeah. So, me too.
Right, you are too as well. So if the dominant race is not having children, if the dominant race children are killing each other, killing themselves with opiates and meth and drugs and stuff like that, you will be that. No matter what you do to us, that's going to be the case. You can't kill us all out.
So I know over the years they haven't really broken it down for us so we can understand what was going on. So let me paint a picture for everyone listening to this show right now. 62%, there are 320 million people in the United States, approximately 320 million people. 62% of that is 198.4 million. Okay? So think about that. If you can do business among yourselves and you're 198.4 million, don't you think you can become more sustainable? The different cultures working together instead of trying to get what the privileged culture has and they don't really care about us. You see what I'm saying? So think about that, guys. If you're an entrepreneur, think about that. There are 198.4 million people who are not a part of the oppressive group. So that's a marketplace that you can do business with, and you can make your own money to become sustainable. So I just want to put that out there.
I absolutely love that, Gilbert. You are so right. Those numbers speak volumes. And if we got that many people together, working together, supporting each other, doing business together, doing what they did in Greenwood, creating everything that you need, the pharmacy, the hotel, the whatever you need, it is right there. You don't even have to go there. And with that number of people, you can maintain and stock the shelves to look like anybody's store.
Oh, yeah.
You can have luxury hotels just like anybody else, because now you've created this. This is the secret, the money. The cash is the secret sauce to all of it. The more money you have, and there are certain Black celebrities and sports figures that there's a certain amount of untouchability because of the fact how much money. They just can't go right out and kill them. But again, we all need to come together and really working together so that we can get out of this place we're in. I'm sick and tired of turning on the television and watching another one of our children die in the street at the hands of somebody that thinks they're better than I am. I am sick and tired of our businesses being told no, they can't have loans to grow their businesses. I'm tired of the meager handouts and throwouts you give me every time we start screaming racial and civil justice. And then you want to throw out a few little dollars, but you don't really make it that easy for me to get it. I still got to jump through hoops to get it. I still got to feel demeaned in getting it. I want a place where I don't feel that way. I want a Black Wall Street. I want a Greenwood, Tulsa, so that I feel that I'm proud and can stand tall and to work hard and to be able to make a better life for myself and my family. That's what I want. And I hope that every other Black American wants the same thing, and the same thing in the Latino culture and in any other culture for that matter. There is no reason. This is America. This is what America was supposed to be. Was supposed to be the land of the free, and people were to be able to live the life that they wanted to live.
That's exactly my point. I totally endorse that, Crystal, because by them giving us little subsistence, like a little ridiculous stimulus check, $600, what is that going to do? You
Right.
see what I'm saying? We need to be put in a position where we can be sustainable. And in
Right.
order to be sustainable, we have a need that needs to be addressed. So whether it's a line of credit or a loan within our business or grants that we can get to help us to sustain ourselves, to run a business, to hire people, to take care of our family, to purchase healthcare, proper healthcare, not that bogus plan that they have out there where we can't even afford.
Right.
Okay. Healthcare, run the economy the way it's supposed to be, build the infrastructure, education for our kids and our family. You see what I mean? That's the
Exactly.
kind of thing. So in the meantime, the education that we have to disseminate is what Crystal and I have here on the Business Zone. And for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, this is the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook every Friday at 3 p.m. And you can reach us if you're a business owner, you'd like to get your business promoted and you want to be a guest on this show. Reach out to us, reach out to Crystal. And Crystal, maybe you could put that number in the chat.
I
Reach out
certainly can.
reach out to Crystal if you'd like to be a guest on this show so you can talk about your business, so you can help to promote your business, so you can help to educate the community and provide a service or a product that can solve their pain or our pain in the community. So that's what this program is about.
And that is our show, guys. We want to make sure you have a healthy and safe holiday weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. Check out the Tulsa burning, the 1921 Race Massacre, which is on the History Channel this weekend. So check that out on Sunday afternoon. This show is on YouTube. Go check it out, share it with your friends and family. Thank you, Stacy. Stacy says great show.
Thank you, Stacy McBride, and thank you
Yeah, that's my
also
girl over
Fernando.
there. That's one of my BFFs. And thank you, Stacy, for tuning in. And
Fernando,
we just
thank
want
you.
you guys to be safe. Also, we want you to know, we're coming out of the pandemic, but make sure you are safe. Make sure that you're still wearing your mask in places that you don't know and the people you don't know, because they may tell you they got the vaccine, but they may not have the vaccine. So stay safe, still continue to social distance, and wash your hands and sanitize. But have a fantastic weekend. Thank you, Tanya. Tanya said this was an insightful show. I am
Thank you,
proud to be
Tanya.
Black.
Thank you, Tanya.
I don't ever apologize for being Black. But I want to make sure that we are living and upholding and being recognized by each other and supported by each other. And it would be my ultimate dream that I am supporting all Black businesses and all Black businesses are supporting mine. So with that, Gilbert, it's been a phenomenal show today.
It's been, and I want to thank Fernando Young and Tanya Mackey also for tuning in, and really, really appreciate you guys. Appreciate your input, and that's what we want to do. We want to help to mold or improve a small business out there. So that's what this show is all about. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and so now go on over to YouTube and hit our subscribe button so you get notification every Friday at 3 p.m. that the Business Zone is on. You get a notification at actually about 30-40 minutes before we air. So make sure you go over there and do that. We truly appreciate your subscribing to our channel. We wanted to grow our channel. In July, the Business Zone will have broadcast, have been on the air for 5 years. We're super proud of our consistency.
5 years, baby. 5 years we've been on this. Crystal and I, we've been on this for 5 years. So we want you guys to come celebrate with us in July, and we're going to have some goodies for you guys.
Yeah. So thank you guys. Have a fantastic weekend. Gilbert, you got some plans for this weekend?
This weekend, I got all kinds of work that I got to do. Got some certifications. I got some proposals to do. I see there's an RFP I got to respond to. It's to provide procurement assistance to small businesses. So I got to see if we can get that. And if we get it, then we can help a lot of our minority and small and women-owned businesses out there. So we're always working for you guys, always trying to find ways to help you to start your business, grow your business, transform your business into a dynamic small business and make you ready, business ready, contract ready, bank loan ready. That's what Crystal and I did.
There you go. And I am going to take a little break. I'm gonna play tennis tomorrow morning. I'm gonna hang out with my girls Stacy and Daisy on Sunday, and then I'm gonna have barbecue that my brother-in-law gonna fix on Monday. So that's going to be my holiday weekend, not venturing out too far from home. But that's what I'm going to do. So we will see you guys next Friday at 3 p.m. Same channel, same bat channel, Facebook and or YouTube. So we're out, guys. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week.
And Lloyd the Truth McLeod, thank you for tuning in, my brother. We're out. See you guys.
As a small biz pro, I saw we roll, using procurement, program, and control. As a small biz pro, I saw we grow, using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman.